Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada. With an unfortunate special WWE edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Saturday, which is not a normal time for you to hear the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, especially in the afternoon, not the evening, coming after a premium live event or pay-per-view. Unfortunately, we are here today to break down 23 talent releases made by WWE and TKO on Friday, including 13 main roster superstars. As this is a special edition of the show and a single topic podcast, we don't have much time on either side to discuss many other things. But as we get into the program, let me knock this out off the top. A reminder, please, that here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave us a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us everywhere on social media at Getting Overcast, especially Twitter and Blue Sky, where you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. You can subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do too. For only $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. For those who do subscribe, you know you've got a juicy one. This past Friday, one of the deepest that we've actually dove in terms of WWE and things surrounding WWE. So make sure you support the show. We're an ad-free program. All we do is ask for contributions while we give you extra content. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Now, Vintage Chris Vanini is here to discuss all of these WWE releases with us. Before we get to breaking them down one by one, let me just first note, we're calling them releases at this juncture, despite the possibility that, as we learned last year, a handful of them may be more accurately described as non-renewals with expiring contracts. There's also the possibility that some talent requested their releases, which we have learned after the fact during prior cycles like this, but we'll initially operate from the standpoint that all of these departures are WWE decisions, whether they're actual releases or non-renewals of contracts, until we know otherwise. Before we begin, though, when we speak to our Getting Overheads, I do like to believe that we have cultivated a smart audience. Not smart in terms of smarks, knowing details about the industry, but smart meaning you have an elevated understanding of, how business and real life works. I say that because there's this insane fervor every year at the same time when WWE releases wrestlers from their contracts that just does not exist in any other sport or entertainment industry. The NFL each year literally has a cut day where hundreds of players, including dozens of rookies, lose their jobs. MLB teams trim their rosters during spring training. There are NBA players who get drafted yet never see the court. A time existed in WWE where they did some truly heinous shit when it came to releasing wrestlers, such as cutting 80 talents in 2021, over 100 wrestlers across 20 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. That was beyond the pale, especially given the circumstances. And that's despite everyone knowing WWE's roster was legitimately bloated at that time, purposefully. It was overinflated to keep talent away from other companies. That is not how WWE operates today. The main roster is relatively trim. The vast majority of signed, healthy talent actually gets used on TV. Even in NXT, most people get a legitimate shake. Further down in developmental, it's easier to go in and out, of course. As such, an annual refresh of the roster, it's just no different than what happens in these pro sports leagues. It's literally part of the process. Football players don't necessarily get to see their contracts out either. Some of them have guaranteed contracts. Many do not. And when they lose their job, their money goes away too. Furthermore, it's not like WWE is operating as many companies in our industry, Vintage and I, as they do, releasing hundreds of people per year without replacing them. WWE, we're going to discuss in a moment, released 13 main roster talents. They called up 11 people from NXT just in 2026, maybe more to come on Monday, And they signed multiple free agents, including Matt Cardona, Royce Keys, Evil from New Japan Pro Wrestling, others. So yes, people lost their jobs, and that sucks. Some of them are people who entertained us on screen, and we wish were still entertaining us on screen in WWE. Maybe they will entertain us elsewhere. Maybe not. In one breath, people cannot scream from the mountaintop that AEW is legitimate competition and TNA is making strides in the industry, and then believe that WWE ended people's careers because there's nowhere else for them to go if they got cut from their jobs. All I'm saying, and this is to wrestling fans worldwide, is can we just be logical adults when discussing the realities of this process and how for WWE, just like it would be for any of their competitors or the Miami Dolphins or Detroit Lions or any other organization, this is literally part of business and it's a fact of life. No one is guaranteed lifetime employment. You may not believe a decision is fair. You will hear me say as much momentarily. But let's not act like WWE is doing something evil and beyond the pale when they're just adjusting their roster. Trust me, they do enough shit that you can legitimately criticize without needing to exaggerate stuff like this.
Yes, and as we always say on these episodes, there are contract situations, non-compete clauses, as independent contractors can be incredibly frustrating. There isn't a union. Yes, they're paid more now, a lot more now than they used to in the past, top to bottom. But they sign contracts, they're independent contractors, but they're not allowed to work at other companies and all those things that, yes, we believe should be better for the wrestlers. But on the whole, when it comes to releases, yes, look, they just called up a ton of people.
Right.
You're going to have, they're filling space. Like space has to be filled. If you want people to be called up, they're going to have to take places. There aren't infinite places.
Right. If they called up 11 people without releasing 13, you would say, well, why are those 13 people never being used? Well, the answer is because they called up 11. So then you want them released so they can go work elsewhere and appear on screen. But the only way that can happen is if WWE gets rid of their contracts. So the only thing people want, apparently, is for no one to ever get released and to only have their contracts expire. And, you know, in a perfect world, every contract would be guaranteed and companies would be forced to do that. And that might even prevent them from signing certain people because they would know they'd have to pay them out if it didn't work. But this isn't
Correct.
a perfect world, and our jobs are not existing in a perfect world, our full-time jobs. And it's just not necessarily how things go. And as far as the non-compete, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's something else that gets misconstrued. There's not actually a non-compete clause. What happens with WWE, I'll just clarify this once more, is they give a 30-day notice of expiry. So they pay talent for 3 months and then tell them at the end of those 3 months, you are no longer employed. A non-compete basically says, hey, we're not paying you, we're not employing you, and you can't work for our competitors. So my understanding is these talents can choose on their own, you know what? I don't want to be paid for doing nothing. End my contract now. I'm going to go to TNA or AEW or wherever the case. But
And I think some have.
Some have.
A couple have done that.
it has happened in the past. Very few and far between, because generally, if you're being paid a 6-figure salary and you can get that money without doing anything, you generally take it. Unless a company has a major position ready for you and they're willing to pay you so much that it makes those 3 months worthless. But most of the time, you take the money because you take the money. It's free money. You're not working. You're not putting your body at risk. Why wouldn't you? So it's not a true non-compete. People have misunderstood this for a long time. It is WWE saying, we're going to pay you for 3 months. We just don't want you on TV anywhere else because we don't want it to look like you jump ship. And I get why they do that, frankly, from a business standpoint. Anyway, let's break these releases down one by one. And for each, once we kind of go through some of it, I'll give you a projected future home. This is not, news. I don't know where all of these people are going. This shit just happened less than 24 hours ago while we're taping this podcast. But there are definitely some projections that can be made. Kairi Sane, the single most shocking name on this list for a variety of reasons. Not only is Kairi the literal linchpin of basically a year-long storyline involving Io Sky and Asuka that was seemingly about to reach its conclusion. They were going to have a match at WrestleMania, and it got pulled, and now supposedly they're going to have the match at Backlash. But Kairi's incredibly close with both of them, a tremendous worker who was just starting to generate serious momentum over the last 2 months. She did get off to a slow start upon returning to WWE, but she had been on a legitimate upswing recently, doing some of her best work over the last couple of months, including Monday night in that tag team match. She's someone who was made for the Intercontinental title and probably should have held it already at some point this year. But at least she was being used in the tag team division. She was a champion with Asuka. Kairi previously asked out of her WWE contract to return to Japan a few years ago. The last time she left the company was not WWE's decision, it was hers. So it's possible something similar happened here, but there's no immediate indication of that. To me, Chris, this was just a total stunner.
Yeah, it felt like Asuka and Io were going to have the match over Kairi. Like that was the whole thing that they'd been telling us for a while. Asuka yelling Kairi is like the gimmick.
The gimmick.
So this is, yes, by far the most surprising one. And if they were going to do Asuka Io over this, do you not wait a little bit more? Maybe Kairi wanted to go back again like she did last time. I don't really know. But I guess, if anything, on a rapidly deteriorating women's tag team division, we just lost another one here. But Kairi has always been incredibly talented. Probably the number 2 elbow drop of all time, if we're going to assume Macho Man is number 1.
Yeah.
And
seriously, number 2, like for real.
The one she did on Rhea like
incredible.
A couple of weeks ago to the outside was literally insane.
Yeah, it was literally insane.
So hopefully, I hope she was on board with this or something, but she obviously has a lot of opportunities across the world. And hope she finds it.
Yeah, it's really strange. Now, look, they can still conclude Io and Asuka. They can have Asuka say that she sent Kairi back to Japan and Io's angry over that. She wants to fight her and beat her up because of it. They can still get that match. And we need that match, period, at some point. But it is so strange the way that the timing of this, the way it's happened, how it's coming not at the bottom of her work, but at the apex of her work since returning to WWE, like legitimately on that upswing. So strange. As far as what's next for Kairi, it's been long known that Kenny Omega is a huge fan. Who isn't? But she never appeared in AEW while working for Stardom, and she chose to return to WWE instead of going to AEW. I'd assume she goes back to Japan and again rises to the top of that promotion, but anything is possible. And even if she does work for Stardom, she could do a dual contract with AEW. She could just work Forbidden Door shows. I gotta believe we're going to get Kairi and Mercedes Moné at some point over the next 12 to 18 months. This just sucks. I really like Kairi, and out of all the releases, when I saw the names come through, the vast majority of them, I frankly wasn't surprised. It's unfortunate. There were 2 that shocked me. This was one of them, and it was by far the most shocking. The other was Alesiter Black, who got released along with his wife, Zelina. Not necessarily shocking because they are irreplaceable or their departure will cause harm to creative, but because of how Black had been booked recently. Even though Damian Priest got his win back, Black emerged from their feud stronger. He was given wins over Randy Orton and Sami Zayn inside of the last 2 months and eliminated more wrestlers in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal 4 than the winner, Royce Keys. He was also originally scheduled to have a much more significant role with Randy Orton on the road to WrestleMania, which got completely shifted and shafted. He got shafted by the Pat McAfee bullshit. And on the go-home SmackDown to WrestleMania, I believe he was in the background of multiple Orton segments. So this is not just someone who was existing and doing good work in the ring. He was doing real good work in the ring, being used, and going over legitimate talent recently. Now, perhaps this is like a salary dump because Black and Zelina could be line itemed together, so they're wiping off 2 salaries off the books. It's also possible Black was on a 1-year deal with an option when returning to WWE, and they decided not to pick up that option. We know Rusev took a short-term contract upon returning. I believe it's a 2-year deal. Still, for someone who was being regularly utilized, someone who Paul Levesque booked really strong in NXT, like he did Kairi, this surprised me. I have no idea where he goes at this point. I'm not sure he burned a bridge per se in AEW, but they do not need him at all, especially with their insane roster bloat right now. You want to talk about a roster that's bloated? AEW is bloated. I mean, that company is filled to the gills. He could be an immediate main eventer and champion in TNA. He could roll through the independents. If I was him, I would see if New Japan was interested because he would be a top-level gaijin and an IWGP World Heavyweight Champion over there. He'd be awesome doing the G1 Climax and wrestling in Japan. I don't know where he goes. I am very surprised, not as surprised as Kairi, but very surprised he's no longer with WWE.
I listened to an interview he did leading into WrestleMania, and he had talked about being in the background of Randy Orton's stuff and like kind of alluding to stuff going on. So yes, very surprising. All I could think is money or contract timing, like you said, and maybe two of them together makes it easier than one. I don't know, but when he came back, him and Rusev came back together, and everybody was more excited about Aleister Black.
I was.
Yes, but I felt Rusev kind of had more versatility, and Black he kind of always falls into doing kind of the same bit, which was great in NXT in kind of a smaller scale. It's a little bit different on the bigger stage, and for whatever reason, they just I don't know if they don't really kind of just let him loose and go, or they overthink what they want him to do, and then it results in nothing. Like with some of the ones we're going to talk about here, it was just why did they not actually do more with them when they were doing something with them?
Right.
And that's what it felt like with Aleister Black. Why are we doing this Damian Priest stuff for 6-7 months?
Right.
Just do it and move on. You put him and Vega together. All right, let's go.
Take down another baby face. Yeah, exactly.
They don't go, and then you lose the momentum, and then you're just sitting there again. So frustrated with the way they used him over the last year.
When he beat Priest, it was like, oh, they're going to actually elevate him into an upper mid-carder, in this company who can challenge for the WWE title. And I actually think he did challenge Cody Rhodes for the title on TV, and maybe it was a DQ or something like that. So that rings in my head. But it looked like they were elevating him into that spot. And you're having him beat Randy Orton and Sami Zayn. That's what you do with someone like that. But they would only do the same type of spooky promo, and he only really cared about turning other people evil. Maybe he should have focused on winning the title. Maybe he probably should have been United States champion at some point over the last year as part of the open challenge deal. So it's really strange the way he was booked upon returning. AEW gave him a lot more flexibility, and it did work, but also he kind of only did the same thing. They never really booked him that strong and put him over with a title or anything like that. So I don't know. Maybe he's just not meant for American wrestling or something like that, but he's talented, man. Really good in the ring. I like his character. I've always found him engaging. We interviewed him once a couple years ago. I found him delightful. He and Zelina are a great couple, so I just wish them the best. And speaking of Zelina, there's not as much to say about her. Obviously, she quit the company, threatened to start a union that lasted one day, and she resigned anyway when she resigned way before Black came back. And then when Aleister came back, he obviously was put on the same brand as her, and eventually they got paired. She had that United States Championship reign, and just being frank, because I like Zelina, and I think that she's a great babyface. Fans love to get behind her, but every time she wrestled, it just did not work. And so they basically took her out of her wrestling role, put her as a manager for Black, which is really where she belonged, and I was totally fine with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that she has much to do in the industry. I would assume she works the independents. If he gets signed somewhere, maybe she joins him as a valet. That would obviously make a lot of sense. But they had Andrade on SmackDown, and they brought Zelina over to the brand, never paired them. Then they finally pair her with her actual husband. It works. I mean, they looked great together. The entrance was incredible. And now they're released from the company.
Yeah, and unlike Aleister Black, I would say they did do a lot with Zelina. She's the first queen of the ring. She is the first one. That'll always be there. She had the really cool moment in Puerto Rico. She won I think she won the U.S. title sometime over the last year. At least she was constantly in that U.S. title storyline. So, this isn't one where it's why didn't you do more with her? They did do a lot with her. And I think everybody kind of knows what her ceiling is. Mm-hmm. Still surprised at the release just because of the versatility. Like you said, she's one of the best, if not the best talker in the division, and you can do stuff with that. But again, maybe you want to do the two of them together.
Am I wrong that she was one of the first Hey Now champions?
Probably. That would make sense. I don't know if we've written down the lineage, but I believe she held that.
I think she was one of the first 3 or 4 champions. So at least she won that other title. She got 2 titles.
Oh, it was for the entrance. The Aleister Black entrance.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes. Exactly. Santos Escobar. Strange situation here. Escobar allowed his contract to expire last year, only to re-sign with WWE which apparently promised to like heavily feature him in AAA while also using him on the main roster. He never showed up on WWE TV again, but he was being booked strong in AAA with a refreshed gimmick, had him looking and sounding great. He was going after their mid-card title. He just underwent 2 surgeries for his triceps and ulnar nerve, the funny bone, and he's going to be out several months. Perhaps this is just a cold-hearted cost versus usage move for a guy who they felt was not 100% bought in the first place. That's really tough to say. Los Garza were recently used on WWE TV, but barely. Look, Silver King does not bat 1,000, but I hit damn well, okay, projecting NXT call-ups to the main roster. I remain utterly shocked that Escobar and Legado del Fantasma did not break through on WWE TV, either iteration of them. This also leaves me wondering what happens to Los Garza, probably okay. Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro. Maybe this is even more surprising to me because how well AAA is doing, and Escobar would have been a potential main eventer there, especially once Dominic Mysterio kind of leaves that promotion, drops the title, goes back, and gets featured more prominently on the WWE main roster. So Escobar is just one of my, personal favorites. I loved interviewing him on this podcast. I hope you guys go back and listen to that if you never heard it. Oh my God, he was such an engaging conversationalist. So one of my personal favorites. Really sad to see him lose his job. He's out for a while. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? Maybe there's a CMLL and AEW dual contract in his future. It's tough to say.
Yeah, surprised it didn't work for numerous reasons. I, like you, when he was in NXT, thought he was going to be their big Latin superstar.
Yeah.
Like the way that Andrade wasn't.
Right.
Because
everything Andrade wasn't, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, he could talk. He had kind of a real swagger, the way he dressed, all the stuff. It was like, oh, like this is what they're going for. He is going to be a world champion. And then when they called him up, but they kind of switched the groups. Did they put him in LWO or the other guys in LWO? They mixed the groups.
They all became LWO at first, and then he turned on them and then kind of went from there.
And then got the guards. It was a very convoluted.
They changed Legado del Fantasma. They called him up, and then they gave him Los Garza as partners as opposed to Cruz and Joaquin, and they had something all together. Sometimes you can see better wrestlers and think, okay, well, they're going to improve the faction if you replace them. But sometimes it's just the character fit and it's the personality fit. And Los Garza, they did try with another iteration of Legado, and it didn't work. Or either didn't work or they didn't try hard enough. I believe they didn't try hard enough, personally.
Yes, it was that situation where Legado and LWO fought each other for a year and nobody else. And that's where you're just sometimes it does sometimes feel like in WWE, if you get stuck in a loop when you get put in a mid-card faction where it's like, well, it's a faction so we can use it in multiple ways, but we're never going to use it in a serious way. And then you're just stuck there for a while. And all of those LWO and Legado people felt like they were there for a while. And I didn't watch him in AAA. I know he had kind of some of the issues as well. But yeah, shocked it didn't work out, a number of years ago.
Motor City Machine Guns. Look, the writing was on the wall for them about 4 months after they signed. It was not a great fit with WWE. They're strong wrestlers, mediocre as promos and characters. WWE basically abandoned tag team wrestling in the latter half of 2025, all the way now into 2026. It is still not existent. The division is dead as a doornail across both brands. We spoke upon their hiring about dream matches with the Usos, New Day, Lucha Brothers. Literally none of those happened. They fought Fraxium a few times, barely got legitimate 2-on-2 action. The highlights will be their really hot push at the start, winning the tag team titles upon debuting, and those pair of 5-star TLC matches that were simply incredible. Considering both, I believe, were going to coach and train folks in WWE after this contract. At least that's my recollection of the news when they got hired. This sucks for them duly. Maybe they will be welcomed back after they finish their wrestling careers. There is no doubt in my mind that they will go to AEW. They're rebuilding their tag team division, which was similarly in the shitter. They can have top-level matches with the Young Bucks, FTR, maybe Cope and Cage over there. There are some other decent tag teams as well. So they should not be out of work for a while. They're going to be perfectly fine. They could also go to TNA and work there too. I don't think that's going to happen. I think AEW will snatch them up. But They just were never the right fit for WWE. And what's really ironic is we complained for a year that they got no promo time, no character time. The last 2 months, they were actually getting it, and fans were kind of responding to it, and it made sense. They were working with Johnny Gargano, and now they're gone.
Yeah, I'm glad they got a run in WWE, but I think they kind of... It also, obviously, they're past their prime, so it's not what they were at their height, but I think maybe some people are just better off outside of WWE than in it, and they're probably a team that was better off outside of it. They also had that Royal Rumble match, 2025.
They did. 2 out of 3 falls.
It was a 4-match card, and they got a match. They got a stadium match on the card, so that's cool for them. But yeah, the promo just wasn't there. And then when WWE pulled the plug to destroy the tag team division for absolutely no reason whatsoever, which we'll get to and we'll get into more as to why that happened in a minute. There was just nowhere to go, and it's too bad. But they are one of the better tag teams of all time, and it was nice that WWE basically said that when they arrived, and they told you why they are a big deal. Your favorite tag team's favorite tag team, that kind of stuff. And it's true. So at least they were able to get some flowers.
Yeah, they were presented incredibly well. I mean, their entrance, their music, I was going to say promos, the pyro, all of that. They looked great. That tag team match, the Royal Rumble, even though the division was still hot after it, they did both of those TLC matches. Again, all those things on TV going into WrestleMania, then coming out on the road to SummerSlam in 2025. The division was still rolling hot, but that tag team match at the Royal Rumble was really a harbinger for how WWE views tag team wrestling, because you have DIY, a top level team, MCMG. There's only 4 matches on that card. Okay. 2 of them are an hour plus the Royal Rumble matches. One of them was Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, really good undisputed WWE championship match, went like 25, 30 minutes. This was a 2 out of 3 falls match. Everyone was complaining there were only 4 matches on this card, but because they were putting the tag team titles on a premium live event, and I could be wrong, I believe that's the last time it happened for the men. Okay. 2025 Royal Rumble, more than a year ago. I could be wrong. I mean, you know what? I am wrong, because they had the match at SummerSlam, and I think they were left off WrestleMania. I'm just trying to think really quick. Since SummerSlam 2025, I don't think there's been a tag team title match for the men on a WWE PLE. Anyway, let me get back to this. So they do this match. There's only 4 matches on the card. So everyone goes, wow, they're really going to let them go. This is going to be a 5-star match. It's 2 out of 3 falls. It's going to go 25, 30 minutes, whatever. It went 14 minutes with 3 falls. It ended, and everyone's like, oh, that's it? It was like a B match. And if you're getting a B match between DIY and MCMG, that's when you know they don't really care about tag team wrestling.
Well, and it ended with interference from the Profits.
Right, and it ended with oh, God. So frustrating, man. Again, MCMG Profits. We may have gotten that as a match, but if we did, forgettable. You know what I mean? So,
yep.
Alba Fire, the former Kaylee Ray. For those of us who watched NXT UK and know that Kaylee Ray was a tremendous forever champion, we saw week by week how poorly she was utilized on the main roster. She basically never had a chance. As a tag team with Isla Dawn, they never got to wrestle and were gifted a sympathy title win in Europe. She was doing well as Secret Hervis with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, but once Piper got injured, she never had any agency, but once Piper got injured, it was like, well, they're not going to replace her, so the Secret Hervis is just one person. The gimmick was basically dead. When she did wrestle, it was only to make others look good, even when Chelsea was injured. KLR is a legitimate talent. She should have her pick of opportunities. TNA would be silly not to offer her immediately the top spot in their women's division. My guess is she goes to AEW. She works Ring of Honor for their tag team division with Isla, and, could also get onto their main roster doing that type of work as well. AEW seems to hire any NXT Black and Gold talent that it can. So I just presume she goes over there.
Well, it's not just that Piper got hurt. Chelsea got hurt. And when Chelsea got hurt, there was even less to do, because they would get, they'd put him backstage just to have him there, but there was nothing. So I know her a little bit in NXT. Obviously never got to see her full potential in the main roster, but just one of those situations where, if you're looking kind of at the bottom of the barrel, who can kind of move on from. She's kind of the typical, all right, like we haven't really done anything. She's got nothing going on, calling people up. She gets the cut.
You should have seen like her matches. I want to say Toni Storm, Rhea Ripley. I mean, they did a tag team match one time. I think Candice LeRae was involved. She really, really top level wrestler, but unfortunate that this happened. Zoe Stark, as we reported on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover recently, Stark was cleared to return to the ring. She was training to get back. She was at the WWE Performance Center. It was expected that she was going to be back on TV after WrestleMania this week or the following week. You'll remember she suffered that awful knee injury in one of Kairi's first matches back last May on the botched missile dropkick. Zoe is a top-level in-ring talent, legitimately. Her promo and character is almost non-existent. I felt so strongly about her positioning that I literally tweeted TNA President Carlos Silva, something I never do. I never tweet at wrestlers or whatever. I tweeted at this guy saying TNA needs to scoop her up immediately. Their women's division is almost dead. It used to be a bastion for the entire company. Boost her to the top. She could take on the Jordan Grace role over there while hopefully developing a character and getting another chance in the future. Multiple knee injuries are tough. We've seen other people, Seth Rollins, come back from them. I believe Zoe can. She's a hard worker, great in the ring. TNA, sign her up as soon as you can.
I had a dream last night that Zoe Stark was trying to stay on as like a trainer or something like that. But, like her with the Trish Stratus, Becky stuff was probably the highlight. And it felt like it was going to transition from there to Becky Zoe. And I don't remember why it didn't. But then she got hurt and we haven't seen her since. And that was really unfortunate. I knew of her a little bit in NXT. Obviously, we know she's very talented at wrestling. But again, kind of another one of those, she's been with the company for a while at this point. Maybe it's time for a fresh start for everybody.
For sure. Wyatt Sicks, Bo Dallas, Eric Rowan, Joe Gacy, Dexter Lumis, and Nikki Cross. Look, the writing was on the wall here to the point that I unfortunately predicted this last week when they lost to MFT, despite having already regained the lantern. Their highlight was their debut, which was true insanity and legitimately memorable. Everything after that was a slow decline, much of it due to WWE creative, some of it due to happenstance. They debuted really hot on Raw, the better show, and then got shipped off to SmackDown, the worst show for no reason. They got thrust to the top of a white-hot tag team division, buried all the other teams, MCMG, Fraxium, Ciampa, and Gargano, who were making progress, and then completely killed that division by getting into an endless feud with MFT. Bo getting injured and the group getting taken off TV until he could wrestle, despite not needing him to wrestle because they were going after the tag team titles. When there were so many people in that group, it made absolutely no sense. But here is the truth about the Sixth. Even if everything was handled correctly, this group had severely limited shelf life. I never believed it would last more than 2 years. The hope was that Bo and maybe Gacy and or Lumis would be able to develop something on the other side. But the Six were not about to be some 5 to 10 year faction. The way to look at this, in my opinion, is that WWE honored Bray Wyatt in kayfabe, employed his brother, gave work to 4 other people who may not have otherwise been in the company. They got to do the Halloween Horror Nights thing to rave reviews. That is not permanent. We can be negative about stuff, but you know what? Maybe that's not so bad in the end. This to me is an example of don't be sad that it's over, be happy that it happened. And while the booking we're not happy about because most of it for the last 2 years was extremely rough or non-existent, the fact that they were able to honor Bray Wyatt, that all that merchandise money from the Bray Wyatt stuff went directly to the family, and I would assume a portion of the Wyatt Sicks stuff did as well. I mean, that to me is a lot more positive than negative.
So when they debuted and everybody kind of went nuts over it, I'm 99% sure I said at that very moment, okay, what is the plan? Like,
right.
We have seen several times a hot start or whatever, and then there's no plan and it goes nowhere. And that's what this felt like. Mm-hmm. And it combines 2 of the things I talked about on the show, which is you get stuck in a mid-card faction and you just get stuck in a loop where, all right, we just do different of the same thing with the faction and never go anything deeper than that, which they did. And the other part is, if you're going to use them on TV as much as you did, actually use them.
Mm-hmm.
Like all this time about individual promos or video packages, like they're cool at the beginning, but it became the only thing. And it was like, it wasn't like they ignored the Wyatt Sicks. They were there, and sometimes they got a lot of attention, but they wouldn't actually do anything with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would get TV time, but it would be a waste of time on television. And then when they gave them the tag team titles to destroy the tag team division is something I'm not going to get over for a long time. The way WWE had finally put in the work to build up a tag team division coming out of or going into Mania last year. And then from there, it just dragged everything down. I'm not blaming the Six for that. It's the decision makers and creative and stuff like that. But it just, their failure brought down an entire division.
Yep.
And I remain so frustrated over that. And as for the wrestlers themselves, there's some talented people in there. Would have been great if Nikki Cross got to actually wrestle at all ever, in this gimmick.
Yeah.
But, I think a fresh start for everybody here could be good.
The way it went was the Street Profits were on top of that division. They won the titles before WrestleMania. They held them all the way until the summer. The division was still hot around them. They were number one contenderships, title matches, all of that. And then they had done, don't forget, they did the TLC match that was supposed to get on WrestleMania, but it didn't. Right. They did it on SmackDown instead. It got rave reviews. So everyone's like, oh, great. But the division's still going. Even though it was left off WrestleMania, everything's fine. Then the Wyatts win the titles in July. And we're like, that's not going to be great. But they still did the TLC match at SummerSlam because it got such rave reviews.
We thought they would drop the titles back.
Right. And we figured, they're going to drop the titles and then everything will move on. Naturally, the division will move on and the Wyatts will get into a different feud. But they didn't drop the titles. That was the beginning of the end. When they came out of SummerSlam with the championships, the tag team division was completely dead, and they held them all the way until January when they finally lost them to MFT, and then the rest is history.
While at that time, the titles were secondary to the Lantern.
They were secondary to the Lantern, and the Six didn't defend them regularly. If they had fought MCMG, Fraxium, if the division kept rolling, it would have been okay. But they just took them off TV. They were gone.
It's truly hard to fathom how badly they destroyed, not they, WWE, destroyed that division and completely devalued those tag team championships. It's 100% on WWE.
The tag team division, SmackDown, you have to remember, has been terrible creatively for a while. It was, I don't want to say carrying that show, but before the US Open Challenge happened, when you wanted to watch high quality wrestling on SmackDown, it was coming from that division and we were loving it. Tag team wrestling is back. They signed Penta and Phoenix. We're like, oh my God, this division is going to be insane. They're actually buying in. And the whole thing has disappeared. A lot of the talent is still there, but the division is gone. It's unbelievable what happened. That's a legitimate investigative story I wish someone would do on how the hell did the SmackDown tag team division go from one of the best things in the entire company last summer to non-existent it's April, but it was non-existent 2 months later. It was unbelievable.
Well, I don't think we'll get it on Unreal.
Yeah, no, I don't think we will. Apollo Crews. This is the last one. There were times Crews did nice work on the main roster. He has immense in-ring talent, super athletic, but he spent most of 2025 injured, and upon returning, he was only doing background work with Cardona, a guy who AEW may have hired a few years ago, but now, due to that roster bloat I mentioned, he's just not additive for them. TNA or New Japan would be better with him on their roster. We'll see if he goes anywhere.
I many times forgot he was still on the roster till he showed up backstage. I was like, oh. So, a guy who could never really quite find the gimmick that worked. They did the African thing for a minute.
Yeah.
But he's another guy, kind of like Zoe Stark, been with this company for a long time. I saw someone tweet that Apollo Crews was with WWE longer than Ultimate Warrior was. To be with the company that long, even if ups and downs, that's hard to do. So credit to him for that. And again, fresh start might be good. Yeah,
something people do forget is you see people get released. You're like, they weren't really used, whatever. But a lot of them have long careers with the company, and Crews is one of those guys. He was employed for a decade in WWE, never reached the heights that we thought he once could, especially when he debuted in NXT. But he was employed for a long time. And you could even say he got paid a lot of money to not really put his body at risk that much over the last few years. And there are worse things than that. That wraps up the main roster names. There were some folks who were curiously not on SmackDown this past Friday, despite having been featured regularly. Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, Shinsuke Nakamura, Rey Fenix. You can obviously throw Fraxium in there. WWE may make dumb decisions. I cannot see them getting rid of Fraxium. The people with whom they were working on TV got released. The same with Gargano and LeRae. So it was obvious to me that they were left off the show because their creative needs to get entirely reset. Gargano has been getting over with this depression thing. I have heard no indications that he wants to leave WWE. I think he and Candice are both revered by the company. Candice too, especially as a trainer in NXT one day. I was really curious to see where this was going to go with MCMG. Nakamura, I don't believe he ever gets released. I think his contract will expire one day and that's it. Phoenix, they just got to move him over to Raw, let Penta continue singles, put his brother on the damn show, let them team occasionally. I don't know why this is so hard. Plus, again, WWE called up so much male talent to SmackDown, it can probably afford to let him flip sides. But that was just how I wanted to kind of wrap up the main roster. Now, the rest is NXT and developmental. Vintage does not watch that as much as Silver King does, obviously, but I'll run through these real quick, and please, Vintage, jump in if there's anyone that you want to individually talk about. Andre Chase, originally hired to mostly be a player, coach, and trainer. He got Chase U over. He had an completely unexpected run, including 2 tag team championship reigns. I do believe Chase U could have worked as a developmental within developmental supergroup, but version 2.0 was completely botched. The first one never should have been ended. He posted a great video on social media about this. He's going to be an indie guy, but definitely worth following. Tyra May Steele. This is Olympic gold medalist Tamyra Mensah Stock, who you'll remember celebrated her gold medal by talking about how badly she wanted to come and work for WWE. She got that chance. She didn't get on TV until like Evolve and LFG. She won season 1 of LFG, got a shot on NXT. They never really stuck with her. At age 33, with her getting so much time down there, but not being deemed ready for the main roster, I understand the move. I thought she had great energy, probably could have figured it out personality-wise, but I didn't get to see her day-to-day like they did evaluating it. She would add gravitas and legitimacy to the TNA women's division, and I hope she links up over there. Luca Crucifino, the lawyer gimmick before and during his D'Angelo family run, that worked, but they gave him this strange new age gimmick trying to reinvent him in Evolve. That did not work at all.
This one really disappointing. I wrote a couple of stories about him for The Athletic. I was at the tryout when he got there and got the approval to continue to go to WWE. I revisited him back in Orlando as he was doing the lawyer gimmick. He left law school and left. He had an extra year of college football he could have played at Duquesne. He left that to do WWE, and that's why he did the lawyer gimmick. I don't watch a ton of especially Evolve, so I don't know how it was going. I'd seen him a bit with the D'Angelo family there at one point, but man, that's disappointing because I know him a little bit, and I know that was a lifelong dream of his.
Well, if you got his number, man, reach out, find out what he wants to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he obviously completes his law degree and becomes a lawyer. That makes a lot of sense. If you're that deep into it, you might as well. There are other opportunities in wrestling, but I mean, just practice. It's much easier. Dante Chen. Basically a longtime enhancement talent in NXT who did good work when given the opportunity, but was never going to hit NXT or the main roster in a real way. I believe he's the first Singaporean WWE superstar, so that's pretty cool. Malik Blade, some in-ring talent, not a guy who ever clicked with the audience, even if he was used for a decent period of time during NXT 2.0. Trill London, former NFL player Trill Williams, thought he had a good look. I liked his recent vignettes, never clicked in the ring. Tyreek Igwe and Tyson DuPont, these guys teamed in NXT with Wes Lee leading them, only to get sent down to Evolve when Wes was cut last time around. Good size, decent in-ring ability. It just doesn't work out for everyone. Chris Island, I thought he had a really good look seeing him on LFG, but that was really about it. And Serena Linton, no offense, I've never heard this name before. She was apparently on LFG and an All-American collegiate gymnast. I only watched season 1 of LFG. I've just run out of time to catch up on the rest of them. So obviously unfortunate that she lost her job as well. So those are the WWE releases. Again, if you truly want to break it down, the ones that were shocking to me, Kairi Sane, Alesiter Black, Santos Escobar to a degree. The rest of them was kind of a writing on the wall situation. Zoe's a little bit surprising too, just because I heard that she was cleared and coming back, and it seemed like they were ready to try with her in a real way 1 year ago at this time before she got injured. I'm guessing they figured already 2 injuries, a lot of other women that we need to call up from NXT. Like, why are we doing it? Let's allow her to go somewhere else and give it a shot. I really do legitimately. I said it twice already. I really hope she goes to TNA. I think she could be a star there, but unfortunate for all these people, of course, to lose their opportunities in WWE. The somewhat positive news, I guess, if you want to do rose-colored glasses a little bit, is this no longer seems to be like a multi-time per year schedule with WWE. It seems like it's always after WrestleMania. It's like a one-time deal and you're able to move on. There are sometimes releases that trickle out over the weekend into Monday, but it does seem like this is the entirety of this batch. And when you consider that, like I said, 11 talents have already been called up from NXT this year, possibly more on the way Monday. And then obviously all the free agents that WWE is signing as well. It is just, a standard part of the operations and standard course of business. Switching up the roster, it is difficult to say with the recent call-ups, everything that happened on Friday night. I'll mention it just here really quick. They called up Fatal Influence to one of the greatest reactions I've ever seen for a debuting act ever. Shocking, awesome booking, just absolutely nailed it. Blake Monroe and Ricky Saints are both going to be on that brand starting next Friday over on Raw. Obviously, Sol Ruka, Ethan Page, Joe Hendry, they've decimated the NXT men's division with Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans previously getting called up. That is a lot of top-level talent that was carrying that show that is now on the main roster to entertain us. And it's difficult to say if you look at it, apples to apples, departures and arrivals. It's tough to say WWE roster didn't get better over the last couple of months.
I remember when I covered that tryout before WrestleMania 38. And as I've kind of talked to people in developmental, because when they made this big push into growing developmental with people from college sports and stuff like that, part of what some Triple H had told me was like, now we can make decisions on developmental people quicker. Maybe you don't have 2 years to get it right now. Maybe you have a year to 18 months, and then we move on to the next person. That's when the roster is so deep and developmental is so deep. That's what a company is going to end up doing. The workers will therefore just kind of have less time. That's kind of supply and demand of wrestlers and stuff like that. And like we said, the roster is already loaded. They're doing 5.5 hours of television on the main roster across two rosters. So like they've got space. They're giving people time now with SmackDown being a larger show. And now NXT has been rated. Now it's time to see who steps up and fills those spots. There are suddenly now a lot of opportunities in NXT for that next crop. So that's a good opportunity for them. And one other thing I wanted to just address, Zelina Vega, I think, said on her live stream, she was really mad at, I think, Sean Ross Sapp for reporting that she had been let go. I would just say, as someone who, part of my job is reporting coaches getting fired.
Right.
And a lot of times you will hear from coaches themselves or other people of like, they wanted to tell the team first because the news got out. That almost never happens. That's the job. The job is to be mad at whoever from WWE leaked it.
Correct.
Like that's where her maybe
the anger is misplaced.
Frustration should go to, not toward the reporter for reporting. I understand why Zelina wants to make the announcement herself, and every coach who gets fired wants to tell their team before they find out via a tweet or something like that. But the way reporting works, that's just kind of often not how it goes.
Yeah, this is not in defense of any individual person who is reporting or is not reporting. It's just good fact-based information there from you, Vintage, that it is not a reporter's job to ensure the talent or coach or player or whatever gets to handle it their way. If they learn something and it's factual, they're able to confirm it, then you report it. It's just as simple as that. And it sucks that it happens this way sometimes, but it's not, the job of a journalist is not to do favors to talent and coaches and things like that. It is to do your job and report the things you know when you know them and when you can confirm them. And it's as simple as that. Real quick, just because I was looking at this, last year's releases, 2025, we're not going to spend a lot of time, but I was just curious. I was like, oh man, who got released last year when we did this show? And, how many mistakes were made, right? Dakota Kai, Braun Strowman, Cora Jade, Gigi Dolan. Those are the big names. Dakota is only doing independent stuff. Braun retired. Cora is finally working on TNA. She had, I believe it was a mental health thing that took her out of wrestling for a period of time. She was working independence for a period. Gigi, I legitimately don't know what she's. I think I've seen her do some independent matches, but I don't believe she's in a major company. Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. Katana, I think, completely retired. Kaden is in AEW, kind of doing occasional work. Shayna Baszler hasn't gone anywhere. Eddie Thorpe, same. Riley Osborne, Oro Mensah, both gone. Jakara Jackson is succeeding in TNA, but like that was the group last year, and we looked back on that, and I believe I'm like, how could they release Dakota Kai? I'm shocked. They cut Cora Jade. She's so young, and she was over in NXT, and people were really rooting for her. Gigi Dolan, wow, like so many names that we mentioned. Carter and Chance, when the women's tag team division at the time basically had no teams. And you look at it 12 months later and you're like, not that all of those cuts were okay, but it was like, I get it, and maybe they were quote unquote right in some of those, cases. And you look at these, and there's some names that really stand out. We mentioned them that like are more significant than names I just read from 2025.
It's really the 2.5 to me. It's Kairi, it's Alesiter Black, and it's kind of Zelina Vega.
Well, and Santos
those are the ones.
Santos for me too, but
I'm surprised it didn't work. I'm not surprised he got released, kind of just based on how things were going.
Sure, based on the trend, totally. Yeah, I agree. And then there's other people again where it's like you want the best for them. I want the best for Dakota Kai. I want the best for Zoe Stark, but it's like I kind of get it, unfortunately. So. Yeah, that wraps up this special edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We don't like doing these episodes, not only because we're doing extra work on a Saturday, but because we're discussing people losing their jobs, which is never fun. But we did want to, of course, give you comprehensive coverage of WWE, which is what we do here on Getting Over. Make sure if you're listening for the first time, you hit the subscribe button. Join us Tuesday for our next WWE episode. On Thursdays, we talk NXT and AEW. On the way out, allow me to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
It's all about the five.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, when you subscribe, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews across the board at Getting Overcast. And please also remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Make sure you sign up, support the show. We are ad-free. This is how we keep the lights on. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Thanks so much to Vintage Chris Vanini for joining. I hope all of you have a great rest of your weekend. We will see you on Tuesday talking all things WWE. It is officially time for us to sign off and leave you with 3 final words. Bye for now.